The New York Mets score 5 runs in their 3 games as they lose their first series of the year to the Houston Astros, and they will look for a bounce-back performance in Miami, as we'll get David Peterson's season debut. Kodai Senga will make his season debut. But everything that happened in the first 3 games of this series and a preview of the upcoming set against the Marlins, the focus of this first in-season edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Chris Schubert, Jack McKessie here with you to break down everything New York Mets. Jack, how are you, my friend? Have you found the Mets offense? Have you been able to find it? It's missing. I tried to find it, couldn't find it. I figured I'd check in with you.
So we're recording this on the Mets off day, the first off day of the season. That's right. Sunday the 30th.
The rare Sunday baseball off day.
Exactly. I've been looking all Sunday for the Mets offense, and I have come up empty. But what I have found, Chris, are some YouTube video versions of this here podcast over on my YouTube channel, Jack McKessie. You just search up my name, Jack McKessie, McKessy on YouTube. You can find all 47 now episodes of Bleav in Mets over there if you want to watch your podcast in video format.
Fantastic segue by you. Excellent. Was not expecting that, but it was very, very good. I'm going to piggyback off it and say I also found the world's most trusted betting platform, and that's Bet Online, and they're your number one source for betting on the rest of the madness. Even if your bracket is busted, Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action. Hopefully you got involved with the free Sweet 16 bracket and live betting on every remaining tournament game. They've got the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball, or you're getting in on the MLB action, NHL, and MMA. Bet Online continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. We'll start with a Mets team that sits at 1-2, and the offense is the big question mark. They scored a 1 run in 2 of these 3 games. The lasting image I have is of a team that went 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position on Saturday night, getting 1 hit in that game. Francisco Lindor is still searching for his first hit of the season. And in all honesty, Jack, unless your name is Juan Soto, you struggled in this first series of the year. So the Mets will need to go to Miami, continue this road trip, and they will need to find their offense. Juan Soto, as advertised, I know everyone made a big stink about that first game of the year and that at-bat in the 9th inning, but he responded with 2 really good games, and he has an on-base percentage. I checked this before the show. Over 600, his on-base percentage at the start of the year. That is very good. We'll take that.
That's pretty good. Pretty
good.
Yeah, the big takeaway from game 1 from Mets and Yankees fans dunking on Mets fans alike was Juan Soto's washed. I don't know if they forgot that he got on base 3 times that game, 2 walks and a single. But game 2 starts with a bang for Soto. He hits his first home run as a New York Met, an absolute laser beam off of the facing of the second deck. And as far as Mets offense goes, Chris, that's about all I can really talk about, because that's just about everything that happened offensively for the Mets. The 1 run that they scored in Saturday night's game was not a result of a hit. It was a result of Jose Siri being a menace on the base paths after getting a walk. You think, hey, Jose Siri, 9-hitter, walking with 0 outs ahead of Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso. You think something good's going to happen. It did, but not because anyone was getting a hit. I think for me, some of the biggest takeaways I had for the offense was, 1, you can't be striking out 27 times in 3 games and expect to have any success. But 2, there was some really rough batted ball luck. And I came into this episode having done some research. Francisco Lindor's first at-bat of the season was a 96-mile-an-hour line out. That was an expected batting average of 810. So just a rough start to the season for him with the luck he's had. A lot of his contact other than that, honestly, has been weak, though. But to get off to that start is unfortunate. Pete Alonso had a deep fly out to center field in the second game of the season. 990 expected batting average. It was a home run in 24 out of 30 ballparks, but not Deichen. And then Jesse Winker had a fly out with an expected batting average of 730, also to dead center, also ended up in the mid of the center fielder in Houston. So I think there is clear potential here of things getting turned around for a few hitters. There was some good contact that I saw, but in general, this was the exact opposite of the 2025 New York Mets team that we expected coming into the season.
Yeah, and it started really in that first game where They struggled early. Clay Holmes struggled early in his first start. Just didn't have the command of everything. Didn't use the kick change as much, and I don't know if that was because he was afraid to throw it to a right-handed hitting lineup, but kind of avoided using what was one of his best pitches all spring. Didn't have command of his fast stuff, and so he threw nearly 90 pitches in 4 2/3 innings, and you're just not going to be able to go deep in games, especially your first start of the year when you have that type of command issue. And then the Mets, they kind of pulled a rabbit out of their hat. They kind of pulled a 2024 because it was the 8th and 9th inning of the game where you start to see a little bit of a rally, and they put Josh Hader in that tough spot in the 9th inning, and it was some really good at bats to even get them to that point in the 9th inning, because it was the bottom part of the lineup that turned it over to even give Soto that opportunity, right? You had Taylor with a leadoff hit, Marte had a hit, and then what I think should not get lost in all of it was the great at bat that Luis Angel Acuna had, a 12-pitch at bat where he goes down 0-2 after flailing and swinging at the first 2 pitches, but doesn't get too ahead of himself, is able to stay in the moment and just continue to battle, continue to foul off pitches, and then draws a walk. It was just an excellent at-bat from Luis Angel Acuna, and you don't get Juan Soto in this game unless Acuna draws that walk. Soto comes up there, just doesn't come through in that moment. It's not a big deal. I know Yankees fans were taking their victory lap after it happened, but guess what? Even the superstar players, most of the time, don't come through in those moments. It's very rare for those moments to line up the way that they did and then also happen the way you want them to happen. Guess what? I'll still take Juan Soto in that spot 100 out of 100 times the rest of the way. So if that's the way every game's going to end the rest of the way for the New York Mets, I'll take it. So disappointing in that first game to only get the one run across and to just have an offense that was slow, sluggish, was the theme throughout the whole series, but you also got the worst starting pitching performance of the entire weekend. Of the 3 starters that went this weekend, Clay Holmes' opening day start was the worst of the 3. And that was disappointing because there was a lot of expectation on what we were going to see from Clay Holmes. And you saw it, right? You saw brief pockets of, oh, okay, he's found something. He just wasn't able to put it together. So that's why I'm really looking forward to see how he responds in this next start against Miami.
Yeah, 4 2/3 from Clay Holmes. I was texting you throughout the game, Chris. It just, my one of my biggest takeaways from watching him in his debut as a starter here for the Mets was he's just working too fast. Like, he was not letting the pitch clock get down to the 2 seconds, the 1 second that Framber Valdez was getting to consistently, just letting himself get into a rhythm. It felt like every pitch was a little more rushed, and I don't know if that's opening day nerves. I don't know if that's I'm not used to being a starter, and I'm not used to having, a shorter pitch clock with no one on, and so I'm thinking that I need to rush, or with people on, I'm not used to the extra seconds, so I'm still rushing. I felt like he was gassing himself very quickly early on, and once he started to lose the command of that fastball, which he kept kind of finishing high on, he didn't get through his follow through, and so some of those fastballs were sailing on him. He just kept kind of rushing, and the tempo of the game kind of seemed to catch up to him. So not able to get through 5 innings there, and I did like some of what I saw. Like, there were some pitches that he made against Jose Altuve that made him look like an absolute fool. Like,
that first strikeout that he got of Altuve was really, really good, and he threw that sweeper and was able to get a really nice strikeout there. So again, those were pockets of time where you saw the good in Clay Holmes. It just, he wasn't able to put it together. And when you're missing with your fastball, he was missing in the worst possible way. He was missing up. They weren't competitive. They weren't close. And so if you're going to battle, even if you don't have your sharpest stuff, you got to keep it competitive. You have to try to keep it around the zone. And he really wasn't able to do that. And so the Mets were behind the 8 ball. And as we've seen throughout the whole weekend, their offense wasn't up to the task. Their offense was sort of up to the task in game 2 of this series because it's a Juan Soto home run. It's a Mark Vientos double. It's Jesse Winker contributing. And the Mets score 3 runs early in this game, and they hold on to win 3-1 behind Tyler McGill and the Mets bullpen. I mean, it was a fantastic start for McGill. 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. And then the Mets went high leverage reliever after high leverage reliever after high leverage reliever after high leverage reliever. Like you saw, and I got to tell you, what a great opening series for the trust tree. The bullpen trust tree. Time. Everybody is on the top branches. I mean, there's nobody. Max Kranick, whatever branch you're on, I'm moving you up a branch, right? Jose Budo, you move up a branch, right? Everybody's up a branch after what they did. But you saw the way, if Carlos Mendoza has everybody available, how he wants to attack this right now. It's Reed Garrett into AJ Minter, into Ryan Stanek, into Edwin Diaz. And if you think about it from the context of how things ended last year, Edwin Diaz is your closer. I understand why Mendoza probably has an affinity and a trust for Ryan Stanek with what he did in the postseason. So you're going to give that dude the 8th inning opportunity first. Minter is the perfect 7th inning setup man. And then Reed Garrett's the guy that bridges the gap, whether it's in the 6th or the 7th. Like, you saw it. Without Daniel Nunez, like, this is the way this is going to set up for this team. And it worked flawlessly. They didn't allow a hit in the 4 innings. McGill was awesome, had some of the best stuff plus numbers across the board that night in all of baseball. And just when I think I'm out on Tyler McGill, he pulls me right back in with a start like that, where he has that wicked slider. He's throwing the fastball. He really kind of pared down his pitch arsenal, and he was really good. But again, only 3 runs from the offense, but it's okay when you have that type of pitching performance that the Mets had from their bullpen, and their bullpen was excellent all weekend.
Yeah, and to the McGill end of things, you're going to look at the box score, you're going to see 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, a walk, and a strikeout. That doesn't tell the full story. He actually started the 6th inning and then gave up a drop third strike, which is just the most annoying way for a runner to get on base. It's very frustrating as a pitcher, I'm sure. And then a single to Jose Altuve.
As a coach of a 10-year-old softball team where we play drop third strikes, yes, it is the most annoying way to get yourself out of an out that you had. Yes, very annoying.
Very, very frustrating to start the 6th inning for McGill. Mendy comes out, brings in Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett gets an out, walks a guy, so base is loaded. And then we saw the Reed Garrett that we had seen in early parts of last year and late parts of last year, where he was able to get out of it with a couple of strikeouts and a fly out to right field. And he was pumped up. Like, he was ready to go. Everything, like you said, Chris, everything that we saw from these guys, Reed Garrett, Ryan Stanek, and Edwin Diaz last year, and everything that we expected AJ Minter to be, they lived up to the promise. They looked like the high leverage relievers that they are. Garrett got out of a jam, and then everything else was very easy. That was one of the easiest Edwin Diaz saves I've ever seen in the last 2 years. So it was really nice to just have a strong pitching performance from those guys in the bullpen when coming into this year, we had some questions about, is Ryan Stanek going to be as good as he was in the postseason because the last regular season was not as good? Is AJ Minter going to be good coming off of that hip injury? How is Edwin Diaz going to be with that velocity a little bit down to start the year? Is Reed Garrett going to look more like early season Reed Garrett and late season Reed Garrett, or middle of the season Reed Garrett? So to see all those guys perform well, to see Tyler McGill go out there and almost be able to get through 6 innings, really, really promising stuff in the second game of the series to go with the decent offense for the first 3 innings.
Yeah, I don't want to jump around too much, but I do want to ask this question of you now, because I saw it a little bit on social media, and I was a little, I don't want to say annoyed. That's probably too strong. We're 3 games into the season. I just kind of took note of some of the bullpen decisions over the course of the weekend from Carlos Mendoza, because he didn't use anybody on back-to-back days, even though there was a built-in off day today. I texted you at one point and I said, clearly he's allergic to doing that this early in the season, that he wants to avoid that at all costs. And I think on the surface, I can understand that. But you have that, and then he clearly, it felt very preordained that he wanted to make sure that over these first 3 games, he got everybody in. That by hook or by crook, everybody was going to see an appearance. And in this 3rd game of the series, he didn't really care what the situation was. Jose Budo and Max Kranick were going to get into this game. And when you do that, you kind of box yourself in, right? If you know Jose Budo is going to be somebody that you want to use, do we need to leave Griffin Canning in to face Jordan Alvarez again when you have Jose Budo and that changeup ready to go? I didn't necessarily hate the idea of letting Griffin Canning face Alvarez again, but if you know you want to use Budo, right? You know he's going to be your first guy up and you have him ready to go. It just feels like a roll of the dice that you don't need to take this early. But Carlos Mendoza could be sitting here on this podcast and he could tell you it's early in the season. This is exactly when I want to roll the dice, because I want to see how Griffin Canning does in this moment. So that when it comes to August and September and we're late in a pennant race, I know what my guys are capable of. I can see it going both ways, but clearly wanted to get everybody in, did not want to go to Miami, having somebody hanging out there, not getting appearance here and getting those nerves out of their system. And the decision to leave Griffin Canning in there, because let's face it, the dude has a loss on his stat sheet that he doesn't deserve, because he pitched way better than the way his stats are going to be reflected, because I don't think you could have asked anything more from Griffin Canning in his first start as a New York Met. So we can transition into the 3rd game where the Mets get 1 hit They only score 1 run, and they waste a really good performance from Griffin Canning. 5 2/3, 4 hits, the 2 earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And you just saw everything that the Mets have been working on. If you've doubted the pitching lab up until this point, I think you saw in the Griffin Canning start what they've been working on, because this is a dude last year with the Angels that was lost, didn't have it.
Yep.
And you saw the tweaks that the Mets were making. You saw the changeup. You saw the sweeper, the slider. You saw him have all of those pitches working. You saw when he would mix in his fastball. And he was great. And he's not going to blow anybody away. He's not going to throw 99 passes. He's not going to strike out 10, 12 guys. That's not who he is. He's a command, keep it around the zone, keep you off your toes, induce some weak contact, trust your defense behind you. And that's exactly what he did up until around the 5th and 6th inning, where he started getting some really hard contact. And it was like, okay, this is maybe where the wheels start to fall off. Do we have a plan here? And I think they just pushed it a little bit too far. I understand why they did, but I think they pushed it a little bit too far. And they wasted Jose Siri manufacturing a run to get them back into this game. They just wasted it, and they end up losing their first series of the year.
Yeah, for the first part of what you were saying, not only did a reliever not have back-to-back outings, there wasn't a single time that a reliever pitched more than once in this series. Huascar Braziban and Danny Young were the only relievers used in game 1, and they did not make another appearance for the remainder of the series after that. We mentioned all the guys in game 2, Reed Garrett, AJ Minter, Ryan Stanek, and Edwin Diaz. None of them made an appearance in game 3. And the 2 guys that pitched in Saturday's game out of the bullpen being, I'm blanking right now, Jose Butto and Max Kranick, had not previously appeared. So clearly, as you said, there was a plan here to get every single one of these bullpen members at least one outing and kind of see how things went. I didn't mind the late pull of Griffin Canning just because of the context of the previous at-bat. So the last hitter he faced in game 3 was Yordan Alvarez. Right before that, he had actually induced a ground out, almost double play ball from Isaac Paredes. It just wasn't fast enough. They weren't able to turn 2. Ended up being guy on and 2 outs for Yordan Alvarez. And the previous at-bat, he had made Alvarez look foolish on a slider that bounced in front of the plate. And so you think if he's able to keep throwing that slider, and man, if there's one thing that Griffin Canning clearly worked on with this pitching development lab over the offseason, it was that slider, because he kept going back to that thing, and it was working well the whole game. I think it was
57% of the time. 57% of his pitches were sliders in the game yesterday. And so, clearly he's going to use that as his lead offering for guys.
Right. And so I understood the vision. I understood we're going to try to get Budo in here for a couple of innings. And hopefully Griffin Canning can get through Yordan Alvarez, get him with another slider. Left it a little bit too high up. Didn't get the bounce that he had the previous at-bat. And then Yordan Alvarez is one of the best hitters in baseball right now. He took him to right center field. I understood the philosophy. It's not going to be what Carlos Mendoza is doing in September. I promise you that guys like Edwin Diaz and Ryan Stanek and everyone else is going to be available, and there is going to be a much earlier hook in series that mean a lot more further down the line. So I didn't mind the philosophy here to start.
I'm not upset about it by any stretch, because I think in talking about it out loud more, I think I fall back on the idea of this is the time to find out where limits are for these guys. This is the time of year where you see how far you can stretch a guy. And let's also put out there, Griffin Canning is new to the organization, right? Signed this offseason. This is his first year with the club. It's his first year around all these guys. Carlos Mendoza may have a understanding of Griffin Canning, but you can't say he knows him as in-depthly as he does some of the other members who he's been with now for 2 seasons. And so you kind of have to figure these things out. Hefner probably needs to figure these things out to start to see the signs of, okay, this is where we probably now need to start getting the bullpen ready to go and be ready to make a quick hook. So again, it directly led to the loss, right? Because Alvarez gets the hit and then they take the lead. But at the end of the day, you kind of need to find these things out. And so I don't necessarily hate that that's what they did.
One last interesting note here. Both Jose Butto and Huascar Braziban had 3 ups, as in they entered the game and then came back for 2 more innings after that. We know Jose Butto was kind of going to be that long reliever guy. And we also know Huascar Braziban was kind of on the bubble of making the roster. But interesting to see them use those guys for longer than most managers do with today's philosophy of, I'm going to get a guy for an inning and then pull him.
Also interesting to see the way the New York Mets decided to debut Max Kranick.
Yes.
You want to talk about an absolute blender of a spot to be put in. It is a 2-1 game. Your offense hasn't done anything the entire game. But if you keep it at 2-1, you have one swing, and you've got Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, Vientos coming up in the next inning. So if you keep it at 1 run, you have a chance. One swing, your offense comes to life, and you can win this game. And he gets Max Kranick in there with the bases loaded, with Yordan Alvarez and Christian Walker up, and Max Kranick delivers. He gets Alvarez to pop out to Vientos along the third base line, and he gets a ground out of Christian Walker. I mean, those are the two guys you have to worry about in the Astros lineup. And bases loaded, a 1-run game, need to keep it here in this spot against the two best hitters on the opposing team. Max Kranick, haven't been in the big leagues in 3 years, playing for your hometown team, making your debut for your hometown team, the team you grew up rooting for. Here you go, buddy. Have fun. Good luck. And he delivered. So Max Kranick stands can take a victory lap here for his first performance. Move him up a branch on the trust tree because of how well that appearance was. And yeah, and then you face Hader in the 9th inning, and Soto draws a walk, but you can't really do anything other than that. And Mets offense went 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position, got 1 hit on Sunday, scored 5 runs all weekend. Listen, you got excellent to perfect bullpen work.
Yes.
You got 2 out of the 3 games this weekend, good enough starting pitching for you to win. It wasn't excellent. It wasn't Jacob deGrom blowing everybody away, but it's good enough starting pitching in 2025 to win baseball games. You won one of those starts. You gave up one of those starts.
Yeah.
That's what happened here. You have to turn those games into wins more often. There's 159 games left to go. I've been doing the Locked On Mets postcast, and I'm 0-2. The one win that they had, I did not do a postcast for. I was doing something else. I was coaching my daughter's softball team. So I'm 0-2 this season, and the live chat is everybody just ready to jump off a bridge. And I'm like, guys, we're 3 games in. We've got 159 more to go. And again, one other good thing I want to take away, because you briefly mentioned it, but I think it deserves its fair share of kudos. I don't think there was a player on the Mets in 2024 that could have done what Jose Siri did in the 6th inning of that game yesterday.
Unreal.
Maybe Luis Angel Acuna late in the year when he first came up for Francisco Lindor.
He never would have had the confidence to do something
exactly.
like
The Mets didn't have somebody on their roster that has the confidence, the speed, the baseball IQ to make that play. Draws a walk, right? Free swinger. Guy's going to hit like 180 all year, but hit 25 home runs. A free swinger draws a walk, avoids almost getting picked off.
In doing so, lays off some pitches that he was swinging away at in the previous at-bat.
Almost gets picked off, but avoids getting picked off. Steals second base, advances on a pop-up, and then just a super heads-up play to just goad Spencer Arrighetti into having... And the broadcast on Fox didn't call it a lazy throw. It was pretty lollipop over to Christian Walker, because Walker had to wait for it. Well, yeah, Walker had to kind of wait for it to come down from the air, and Siri took advantage of that lackadaisical play. And that was something that was missing from the Mets last year, the manufacturing of runs. Okay, our offense isn't here tonight. I got to find a way to score a run. I'm a part-time player. I have to earn every single opportunity that I'm going to get. I'm going to earn another opportunity, and I would not be surprised if we see Jose Siri get a ton of playing time against Miami because of that heads-up play that he made in that game. It didn't lead to a win, but plays like that you remember, because when a guy's playing time starts to expand, you point to things like that and you say, that's why he is in there. It is 3 more coming up with Miami. It will be season debuts for David Peterson and Kodai Senga. So from that perspective, you feel really good about the Mets in terms of the pitching that they have set up. We're also going to get Clay Holmes' second start of the year, so we'll see how he bounces back in the Tuesday matchup. No, it is not an April Fool's joke on all of us. We have to see Sandy Alcantara against Kodai Senga. We joke about using the phrase #our ace, but this is an ultimate ace-off. Kodai Senga, Alcantara, this is ace against ace. This is best against best. So even though we're rooting for Kodai Senga and the Mets, there is something enjoyable about watching team's best against the team's best. And so good pitching matchup for the Mets in this series. We get to see 2 guys who haven't started this year that we consider 2 of their better pitchers. And then we get to see how Clay Holmes responds. Miami opened the year against Pittsburgh. I won't say that I watched a ton of their games. I watched Conine rob a home run the other night, but they took 3 out of 4 from Pittsburgh, and so they're off to a hot start, 3-1. And as it says here in my notes, first place in the NL East for the Miami Marlins.
pretty unbelievable.
They can never take that away. On March 30th, the Miami Marlins were in first place in the National League East.
It's just a reminder to all of you Mets fans who are freaking out about the current state of the Mets and how the season is going. The Marlins are in first place in the NL East. They went 3-1. Spoiler alert, they lost that one game to the Paul Skeens day on opening day. And the Braves are 0-3 and are currently losing to the Padres in their fourth game of the season.
In fact, I have it on the big screen up here. I'm watching them lose right now and potentially get swept in 4 games to start their season.
It is a
relax, everybody.
162 game season.
Relax.
There are going to be ups and downs. I don't know how many of you Mets fans are new around here, but last year the Mets lost their first 5 games.
Yeah, we're already off to a better start.
2 wins of going to the World Series.
It's already a better start. It's already a better start than last year. So,
we can settle down.
And again, their best player, the guy that they spent $765 million on, is their best player through 3 games. He's their best offensive player. He hasn't moving teams and getting that big contract has done nothing for Juan Soto. He's just the same baseball player. Now he's not using the Yankees' new bowling pin bats. Now if only he would have had those last year, maybe they would have won the World Series. But
we might see a 50-50 season incoming from Lindor.
Do we think those bats? This is the last thing I want to touch on. Do we think those bats get like struck down by Major League Baseball, or are they just going to let the Yankees do this? Because it's funny that the Yankees have this offensive outburst, and then we see the story drop about the bats. Major League Baseball is going to look into this in some way. Like they're going to just make sure that everything's on the up and up here.
For sure. I think it's more likely that everything is okay. They do things to the letter of the law, which does not say anything about the shape of the bat, as long as it is a stick, essentially, with a certain diameter restriction. And if the weight is distributed in a way that's different and makes it more effective. Look, Chris, we were close to having a second dead ball era with how good the pitching has gotten with spin and I'm completely blanking. Velocity increasing, spin rates increasing, spider tack.
Deading the ball. I mean, they juiced the ball, then they dead the ball. Now there's rumors that they juiced the ball again. I mean, we're going through a whole roller coaster ride.
If hitters have, or if teams have come up with a way for their hitters to be better, I think that it's kind of evening the playing field a little bit more. And it is going to, before Major League Baseball even gets a chance to investigate this, even though I'm sure they already are, we're going to see a lot of Yankees bats in the second series of the season. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, it's very. And now Aaron Judge hit a bunch of his home runs this weekend with a regular bat. He wasn't using the. Apparently, it's being referred to as the torpedo bat. Looks more like a bowling pin to me, but okay, we'll call it the torpedo bat. Listen, personally, this is why I love baseball. For weird stories like this, like just things that develop over the course of the year. And so to me, I don't care. Like, great, you've created a better mousetrap, right? You took a baseball bat and you changed it because you think it's going to give you an edge. If it works, that's awesome for the sport. Like, cool, let's see what that looks like. Baseball is the ultimate sample size game and the ultimate like experiment. Like, let's see how it works. So it's kind of cool what they're doing across town. Even though I would rather them be in the mud and not win any baseball games, it is kind of cool to see them do this change. And then like they just, by the way, the Brewers might be in trouble. The Brewers might be in trouble. I picked them to make the playoffs. It's only a couple games in, but I'm kind of worried about that pick after seeing some of their starting pitching, and it's not great.
The only pitcher that didn't give up a run yesterday was their position player that was on the mound. So yeah, it's not great. I will say, and the thing that I found more interesting that was bat related this past weekend was Wilson Contreras eating the tape off of his bat.
What was that? What was that?
That is a moment we're going to be seeing a lot this season. It's just like a replay because of.
Is that like a nervous tick? Like, is that it was his way of like getting focused? Like, what was that?
I think he had to get rid of the tape, and it's too much to get it off your hands when you have to be ready with the pitch clock. So he just ate it. Unreal. I was more interested in that, though, than the Yankees bats. I thought that was a bigger storyline.
Fair enough. And we are going to try, because remember, for those of you who are longtime listeners of the show, we started the show late in the year last year. So we didn't get to do all of this stuff where we talk about the random baseball thing. So we'll make sure to do this at the end of every episode. My last thing that I wanted to discuss, shout out to Ryan Nelson of the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's a pitcher, if you don't know this, but picked up a hit. The Diamondbacks lost their DH because of some substitutions things today. And so Ryan Nelson, who's their long reliever, he's basically their sixth starter, but their long reliever, he picked up a hit. So he's the first
Let's go.
non-Ohtani pitcher to get a hit in like 3 seasons or 4 seasons or something like that.
That's awesome.
So you love things like that. I would love for you to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, and tell all of your friends about the show, and tell them to join us on this journey all throughout the year. I would also love for the New York Mets offense to find their groove in Miami. If you are interested, I'll do a cheap plug here for instant thoughts, at least from my perspective. After each of these games, I go live on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel with instant thoughts, a quick 15, 20 minutes after each game, and we do a post-game postcast. So if you're interested after each game to hear my immediate thoughts, my big takeaways, I do that. And then Jack and I are back at the end of every series to recap the big picture stuff and just, go around the horn with everything that's going on in baseball. But that is going to do it for us here on this edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. If you want to catch the video version of the show, just search Jack McKessy, McKessy, on YouTube. We are back after a 3-game series in Miami where hopefully Clay Holmes bounces back. We see some great debuts for David Peterson and Kodai Senga, and the Mets find their offense. So we'll be back to talk to you after that series is done. Enjoy the baseball this week, and as always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.